Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Our guests are Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. And attorneys Mayo, Bartlett, and Randolph, McLaughlin. We're talking about the case of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. He is a former Marine, a former corrections guard. He was a heart patient. He was 68 years old. In November 19th, 2011, his life alert pendant went off. The life aid company, the medical alert company, couldn't reach him, so they called the police and said, this is not a police incident. This is a medical emergency. We ask you to come to the scene. When Ken Chamberlain responded, they called back the police and told them they were canceling the call, but the police said no. They broke down the door, they tasered Mr. Chamberlain, and then they shot him dead. I want to go to another of the recordings that we have been playing. This was released by the White Plains Police Department from the morning Kenneth Chamberlain was shot dead. Listen carefully. You can hear Mr. Chamberlain say, "They're getting ready to kill me or beat me up."
Mr. Chamberlain! They'll probably kill me with that because I have a bad heart. It don't have to happen that way. Put the next thing step place to go. Get out. I didn't call you. I did not call you. Why are you here? Why are you here? Life alert caller. Why are you here? Life alert caller. They have been 9mm Glock at the record. You're getting ready to kill me. Or beat me up. Open the door, let it check you. Let it check you out. I'm okay. I'm fine. Yeah, but I'm not a doctor. I am fine. No, nothing to that. Leave. I'm fine. Now leave, I'm fine.
That was Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. saying, now leave, I'm fine, continuing to assert that he is fine. Ken Chamberlain Jr., as you listen to this, the other statements that your father made, for example, when he said Semper Fi.
Well, my dad, as everyone knows, was a Marine. And, you know, they always say once a Marine, always a Marine. And it's ironic that that's also the motto, Semper Fi, of the city of White Plains, which you'll see on the city of White Plains flag. But they treated my father with no respect whatsoever. And as Randy said, when they released all of the evidence, the audio, the video, I guess it wasn't in an attempt to try to sway the public. But from what I gather and what I've found and observed on blogs and everything else, one of the main things that people say after they review all of it is, I can't believe there was no indictment. That's one of the first things they say. And then the second thing they say is, he said he was okay, so why didn't they just leave him alone? Which is the main answer. Why didn't you leave him alone? He said he was okay. My father would still be alive today had you just walked away after he said he was fine. And you also hear my father saying part of the audio that you're a racist after they used the N-word. And you guys are really the only ones that really play this stuff, where the other media outlets don't do it. They just allege that my father is being aggressive, but they don't play the 30 minutes before when my father is being fearing for his life.
Well, Mayo Bartlett, that issue of the N-word that was used, we have the clip. Can you set it up, what it is that we're about to listen to of the police officers?
Absolutely. It's a point in time where Mr. Chamberlain, again, is asking them to please leave him alone, and something to the effect that he's just an old man with a heart condition. And the officers respond by telling him, essentially, we don't give an F, you know, and call him the N-word. You don't expect law enforcement to do that to anybody. And by doing that, and by having, again, the district attorney's office suggest that that's a tactic, is essentially telling us that we're supposed to accept that from law enforcement, but really they aggravated the situation at that point.
Let's play a clip. Listen carefully.
Don't do that, sir. Don't do that. Don't do that, officer. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. I'm telling
That was Officer Stephen Hart. He was outside Randall McLaughlin?
Well, it's unclear where he was at that moment. That's the second time I've heard that N-word. There's another part in the clip where he's at the window and he says, "Stop, we have to talk," and that's a different portion of the tape. So apparently, as Mayo has said, as Ken has said, there were two instances now that I've heard where that N-word is being used as a, quote, tactic. No, I call it what it is. It's a racist tactic.
You met with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the Justice Department.
We did. The same day that the grand jury refused to issue an indictment, we met and decided that we were going to reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And that next morning, we wrote a letter to the U.S. Attorney's Office and Eric Holder, the Attorney General, demanding a federal prosecution and investigation into two things. One, into the death of Mr. Chamberlain, and to see whether that violated federal civil rights criminal statutes, and also, given other instances that we're aware of in terms of racist policing in White Plains, whether the entire department should be investigated for policies and practices that are leading to these kinds of outrages. So about 2 weeks ago, we met with representatives from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We're not at liberty to disclose what was said in the meeting, but what I can say is it was a very productive meeting. We believe they will conduct a full and fair investigation, and we are hopeful that at the end of the day, when they look at the evidence that you have, that they have as well, that there will be federal indictments.
Do you compare this to the Trayvon Martin case in any way?
I think in some ways this case is worse than Trayvon Martin's case, and here's why. Trayvon Martin was killed in a horrible situation by a vigilante. He wasn't hired or an employee of the city or law enforcement. He was just a wacko nut out there carrying a gun and did a terrible thing. This was, it was almost like an invading army was storming this man's castle, because your home is supposed to be your castle. So it wasn't like they had to make a spur-of-the-moment decision. You know, someone's coming at them with a gun or a knife, and it's us or them. They had an hour to figure out how to handle this. They had up to 10 to 12 officers around. There was a lieutenant in the station house. There were sergeants there. I mean, it wasn't like there were a bunch of rogue officers just making a quick decision. They planned, they executed their plan, and they executed this man. That's what this was. We're suing 8 officers because these 8 officers we charge engaged in a conspiracy. That's what this was, a conspiracy to destroy this man's life and to insult and terrorize him for that hour. And this isn't the first time that 3 of these officers have been engaged in these kinds of behaviors.
And Mayo Bartlett, who are these 3 officers? Can you name the names of the officers and the cases that they are involved with, in addition to Mr. Chamberlain?
Well, I can tell you that Officer Hart and Officer Carelli are involved in other matters. There's a matter involving the Hattar brothers, where they are 2 gentlemen of Jordanian descent who were arrested and alleged that they were beaten and called ragheads based upon who they happened to be. But if I could very briefly just go back to the Trayvon Martin comparison again. Trayvon Martin, there's a suggestion that the stand your ground law may apply there. And Mr. Zimmerman is not law enforcement. Here we're talking about police officers who swear to protect. They're supposed to be the neighborhood watch for the people who live in the Winbrook houses. And instead, they went in there and used language which would terrorize anyone who lives in that apartment complex. Every neighbor of Mr. Chamberlain's had to realize that it could have been them if they had a medical emergency. And in this situation, they went in there, and Mr. Chamberlain was in the one place that you're supposed to always be able to stand your ground, whether you have a stand your ground law or not. You're supposed to be able to stay in your home without retreating. When you're in your home, there's no place else to retreat. And as Randy said earlier, you know, Mr. Chamberlain never left his house that evening. You know, never left his home. He was there 5 o'clock in the morning, never left his house, was in his home while the police broke it down and came in to attack him. But going back to these other cases...
So you have Carelli, who is about to go to court in this case of the Hutter brothers.
Yes.
Brought them into a police station, and explain what happened in the police station?
Well, in the police station, it's my understanding that Officer Carelli struck these individuals while they were in handcuffs in the police station. condition and called them ragheads as an anti-Arab statement that he made. And it's my understanding that there are several other incidents where Officer Carelli has used excessive force against individuals. And
so that case is going forward on September 4th.
Yes, it is.
It was actually delayed. It was supposed to happen a month or two ago. Then there's the case of Stephen Hart. He's the one who used the N-word. What was he involved with?
Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Stephen Hart was involved in the Hattar brothers matter as well.
Randy
He was
McLaughlin.
involved in a Mexican-American banker who, again, was arrested and allegedly beaten, falsely charged with crimes that he didn't commit, obviously. They're part of a group called the Neighborhood Conditions Unit, just like the Street Crimes Unit in New York. These
killed
are
Amadou Diallo in 1999.
that killed Amadou Diallo. And these are a group of cops who literally patrol certain areas, downtown White Plains and the housing development where Mr. Chamberlain was killed. And at least 3 of these officers have been involved in a number of incidents involving excessive force and racial slurs.
Ken Chamberlain, $21 million lawsuit. You're leaving Democracy Now! Today and you're filing it. Will it bring you any kind of relief? We have about 15 seconds.
Well, I don't know so much as about relief, but again, it just is another step in accountability, because we need to pass laws, especially involving questionable police shootings.
We'll leave it there. I want to thank you very much, Ken Chamberlain Jr., also Randolph McLaughlin and Mayo Bartlett, the attorneys. That does it for our broadcast.